What does it feel like to be a ghost in your own life? 24-year-old Zara knows the answer to that question better than anyone. She sits alone in the company cafeteria right now, scrolling through her phone while laughter erupts from the table 10 feet away. There's an empty chair at that table. No one thinks to invite her. No one even glances her way. To them, she doesn't exist. And the worst part, Zara has learned to expect this. She's engineered her own disappearance so perfectly that she's become a master of invisibility, not the superhero kind, but the soul-crushing kind, where you're present in every room but absent from every conversation, every memory, every moment that matters. This is her ordinary world. Wake up alone in a studio apartment that echoes with silence. Commute to work without a single text message lighting up her phone. Sit in her cubicle as a data analyst, the perfect job for someone who wants to blend into beige walls and vanish into spreadsheets. She's excellent at her job, actually brilliant, but excellence means nothing when no one's paying attention. Her ideas get stolen by louder coworkers who present them as their own. Her manager forgets to include her in meetings. During company events, she stands by the snack table like a piece of furniture, and people reach around her for chips without acknowledging she's human. Zara dresses in neutral colors: beige, grey, black, the kind of clothes that help you disappear into backgrounds. She keeps her head down, avoids eye contact, and speaks so softly that people constantly ask her to repeat herself before their eyes glaze over and they stop listening anyway. She's perfected the art of being present but unseen, of existing without taking up space, of living without leaving a mark. But it wasn't always a choice. Zara grew up as the middle child in a chaotic family of 5 kids, sandwiched between high achievers and attention magnets. Her older brother was a star athlete, trophies lining the shelves, college scouts at every game. Her older sister was valedictorian, perfect grades, perfect future, perfect everything. Her younger siblings were adorable, and everyone knows babies get all the attention. And Zara? She was just there, quiet, unremarkable, forgotten. Her parents weren't cruel or neglectful, they were just overwhelmed, stretched too thin across too many children. And Zara learned early that the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Since she wasn't squeaky, she got overlooked. Birthdays became shared celebrations where her cake was combined with a sibling's, her name an afterthought on the frosting. Parent-teacher conferences were skipped because Zara's doing fine code for we don't need to worry about her. When she made honor roll in 8th grade, no one noticed. When she won a poetry contest in high school, her family forgot to come to the awards ceremony. She stood on that stage, clutching her certificate, scanning the audience for familiar faces that never appeared. That night, she came home to find her family watching a movie together. They asked where she'd been. She told them about the ceremony. Her mother said, "Oh, that was tonight," and turned back to the TV. Something broke in Zara that night. Or maybe it just confirmed what she'd always suspected. She didn't matter enough to remember. So she stopped trying. She convinced herself it was easier this way. If you don't expect attention, you can't be disappointed. If you don't reach for connection, you can't feel the sting when hands don't reach back. School became another stage for her invisibility act. She was the girl no one remembered, the face that blurred in yearbook photos, always positioned on the end or in the back, easy to crop out. She wasn't bullied. Bullying requires being noticed. She was simply not there in any way that mattered. Teachers forgot her name by October. Classmates didn't know she existed. She ate lunch alone or with whatever group had an empty seat, never quite belonging, never quite invited back. She had one close friend in high school, Megan, one person who saw her, who texted first, who saved her a seat. But senior year, Megan's family moved 3 states away, and despite promises to stay in touch, they didn't. The texts slowed, then stopped, and Zara was alone again, this time understanding that even when someone notices you, they can still leave. Now, at 24, Zara has no close friends, no romantic prospects, no social life. She's never been in a relationship, never been kissed, never even been asked out on a date. She's convinced there's something fundamentally wrong with her. She's too boring, too plain, too forgettable for anyone to choose. She spends her evenings reading romance novels about women who get swept off their feet, watching shows where people have friends who show up unannounced with wine and sympathy, scrolling through social media feeds filled with birthday parties and wedding photos and girls' night out and all the vibrant, connected lives she'll never have. Deep down, beneath the acceptance and the resignation, Zara is achingly, desperately lonely. She fantasizes about what it would be like to matter to someone, to be somebody's first call when good news happens, to be somebody's priority, somebody's person, somebody's everything. But she's given up on that ever happening. She's 24 years old and has started to wonder if she even really exists, or if she's just a collection of data points in a system, social security number, employee ID, apartment lease, without substance, without presence, without impact. But 3 floors up in the same building, where Zara vanishes into her cubicle, someone else is hiding in plain sight. Kieran is 27, a software developer who's been at the company for 3 years. If you asked his coworkers to describe him, they'd say he's friendly, competent, easygoing, the guy who remembers birthdays and brings donuts and always says good morning. But beneath that carefully constructed exterior, Kieran is drowning in a loneliness he can't quite name. He's neurodivergent, high-functioning autistic, though he wasn't diagnosed until his early 20s, and social interaction is a performance that exhausts him. He's learned to mask brilliantly, to mirror expressions and manufacture small talk and navigate office politics well enough to seem normal. But it drains him completely. He knows what it's like to be the weird kid, the one who doesn't understand why everyone's laughing, the one who takes things literally and misses sarcasm and says the wrong thing at exactly the wrong time. Middle school and high school were battlegrounds where he was relentlessly bullied for being different. He had no friends, no dates, no invitations to anything. He spent his teenage years alone in his room, coding and dreaming of a world where people didn't require so much translation. College was slightly better. He found his niche in tech, but relationships remained impossible. He's had a few partners over the years, but they all ended the same way: frustration with his emotional unavailability, resentment of his need for alone time, exhaustion from having to explain feelings he couldn't name. He's been called too intense, too different, too much work. So now, at 27, Kieran has mostly given up. He goes to work, performs friendliness, goes home, and spends his evenings coding on personal projects or hiking alone. He's friendly with everyone, and close to no one. It's safer that way. Less disappointing. Kieran and Zara have worked at the same company for over a year. They've passed in hallways, maybe nodded politely, but nothing more. Different departments, different worlds. 2 lonely people orbiting the same building without ever colliding, until the day everything changes. The company announces a cross-departmental project. The development team needs to collaborate with analytics to build a new data visualization tool. It's mandatory, it's high priority, and both Kieran and Zara are assigned. The first team meeting is chaos. 10 people crammed into a conference room, voices overlapping, ideas flying, the loudest personalities dominating every conversation. Zara sits in the corner, taking meticulous notes in her neat handwriting, but she doesn't speak. No one asks for her input. No one even looks at her. But Kieran notices. He notices because he's been that person. The one with ideas trapped behind a wall of social anxiety, the one who gets talked over, the one people forget is in the room. And as the meeting dissolves into noise, Kieran watches this quiet woman in the corner, and something shifts in his chest. Recognition, maybe, or curiosity. When the meeting ends and everyone files out, still talking over each other, Kieran does something he rarely does. He approaches a stranger. "Excuse me, Zara, right?" She looks up, and for the first time in longer than she can remember, someone has not only noticed her but knows her name. Could this moment, this simple question from a stranger who actually saw her, be the beginning of everything Zara thought she'd never have? Yes? Those 2 hesitant words, barely above a whisper, are all Zara can manage when Kieran speaks her name. Her heart is hammering because this doesn't happen to her. People don't approach her after meetings. People don't know her name. People don't see her standing in corners taking notes while everyone else argues about frameworks and timelines and whose idea deserves the most credit. But Kieran isn't looking past her or through her. He's looking directly at her, and his expression is genuine, curious, patient in a way that makes her chest tighten with something she can't quite name. "I noticed you didn't share any ideas in the meeting," he says, and Zara's stomach drops because here it comes. The criticism, the judgment, the implication that she's not pulling her weight. But then Kieran continues, "But I saw you taking notes. I was wondering if you had thoughts on the data structure for the visualization tool." The world tilts slightly. He's asking for her opinion. Actually asking. Not as a formality, not as a checkbox on some inclusion initiative, but because he genuinely wants to know what she thinks. I did have some ideas," Zara admits, her voice still quiet, still uncertain, but everyone seemed to already have a plan, so, "I'd like to hear them," Kieran interrupts, and there's no performance in his voice, no social pleasantry, just directness, just honesty, "if you have time." And just like that, with a simple question in a hallway outside a conference room, Zara is seen for the first time in as long as she can remember. They end up in the break room with terrible coffee in styrofoam cups, sitting at a corner table away from the main flow of traffic. Zara is nervous, her hands wrapped around the cup for something to hold on to, and she starts sharing her ideas hesitantly, waiting for Kieran to interrupt, to dismiss her, to check his phone and make an excuse to leave. But he doesn't. He listens with complete attention, his eyes focused on her face, nodding occasionally, asking clarifying questions that prove he's not just hearing her but actually processing what she's saying. When she mentions a potential issue with data redundancy, he leans forward. When she suggests a hierarchical structure that could improve query speed, he pulls out his phone, not to ignore her, but to take notes. 20 minutes pass, then 30. Zara has never talked this much at work. She's never had someone listen this intently. Finally, when she's finished explaining her concept for the data architecture, Kieran sits back and says something that nearly breaks her. "These ideas are really good. Why didn't you share them in the meeting?" Zara looks down at her coffee, shame heating her cheeks. "I don't know. I guess no one really listens when I talk." There's a pause, and when she risks a glance up, Kieran's expression is matter-of-fact, not pitying. "Then they're idiots," he says simply. "You clearly know what you're talking about." Zara's eyes sting. She blinks rapidly, willing herself not to cry in the break room over the first genuine compliment she's received in months, maybe years. This moment, this validation from a virtual stranger, cracks something open inside her that she'd sealed shut a long time ago. Hope. Dangerous, terrifying hope. But here's what Zara doesn't know yet. This is just the beginning. Because over the following weeks, as the project kicks into full gear, something shifts in the architecture of her entire life. Kieran starts seeking her out. Not occasionally, not out of obligation, but regularly, deliberately, consistently. They meet to discuss the project, yes, but the conversations expand beyond data structures and user interfaces. They start having lunch together in the cafeteria, the same cafeteria where Zara used to eat alone, scrolling through her phone, invisible to everyone around her. Now someone saves her a seat. Someone texts her in the morning, asking if she wants to grab coffee before the day starts. Someone remembers that she takes her coffee with 2 sugars and a splash of cream, and hands it to her already prepared exactly how she likes it. For Zara, this is seismic. She has a friend, an actual friend, someone who seeks out her company, who remembers things she's said, who asks how her day was, and waits for the real answer, not the polite deflection. And Kieran? He's discovering something equally revelatory. Zara is easy to be around. There's no performance required, no exhausting social games, no hidden meanings buried in subtext. When she says something, she means it. When he needs a moment to process a thought, she doesn't rush him or fill the silence with chatter. She just waits, patient and calm. When he tells her he needs to leave the loud cafeteria because the noise is overwhelming, she doesn't question it or make him feel broken. She just suggests they eat outside instead. She accepts him, not despite his differences, not while trying to fix him, but exactly as he is. It's intoxicating. It's terrifying. It's everything neither of them knew they needed. But acceptance and friendship, as powerful as they are, aren't the full story unfolding here. Because beneath the surface of these lunch dates and coffee breaks and late-night project sessions, something else is growing. Something neither of them is quite ready to name. Zara is falling in love. She notices it in small moments, the way her heart jumps when her phone buzzes with a text from Kieran, the way she starts choosing her outfits more carefully in the mornings, the way she finds herself smiling at random moments throughout the day when she remembers something funny he said. She's falling, and it's exhilarating and devastating in equal measure because Zara knows how this ends. It has to end. People like Kieran, kind, brilliant, sought-after people, don't choose people like her. He's being nice. He's being a good friend. But there's no universe where someone like him would want someone as boring and invisible as her romantically. So she tells herself to be grateful for the friendship and nothing more. She builds walls around her growing feelings, tries to smother them before they grow too big to contain. But feelings, especially the ones you try hardest to hide, have a way of making themselves known. The project reaches its halfway point on a Tuesday afternoon, and the team gathers for a progress review. It's the same chaotic conference room, the same loud voices, but something has changed. When the project lead asks for an update on the data architecture, Kieran doesn't jump in to explain. Instead, he turns to Zara and says, clearly and deliberately, Zara can walk you through it. It's her design. Every head in the room swivels toward her. Zara's throat goes dry. This is her nightmare, being the center of attention, having to speak, being visible. But then she catches Kieran's eye, and he gives her the smallest nod, and somehow, that's enough. She stands. She walks to the whiteboard, and she explains her design, the hierarchical structure, the query optimization, the scalability considerations. Her voice is quiet at first, but as she gets into the technical details, it strengthens. She fields questions. She draws diagrams. She doesn't stumble. When she's finished, the project lead, a senior director Zara has never spoken to directly, says, "This is excellent work, Zara. Really impressive." Her name. He used her name. He knows who she is. The meeting ends, and as people file out, several co-workers she's never really spoken to before stop to compliment her design, to ask follow-up questions, to see her. For the first time in her professional life, Zara is visible not as a ghost in the corner, but as someone with value, with expertise, with presence. She should be elated. And part of her is. But there's something unsettling about it too. Something that gnaws at her as she walks back to her desk. Because all of this, the recognition, the visibility, the respect, it only happened because Kieran made space for her. He directed the spotlight. Without him, would anyone have noticed her at all? Is she only visible in his shadow, or has something fundamental actually changed? That night, lying in bed in her studio apartment, Zara lets herself think about Kieran in ways she's been trying not to. She thinks about the way he listens when she talks, like her words actually matter. She thinks about the way he remembers tiny details, that she doesn't like tomatoes on her sandwiches, that she's allergic to lavender, that she prefers tea in the afternoons instead of coffee. She thinks about the way he smiled last week when she made a joke about a bug in his code, like her humor delighted him. She thinks about how safe she feels around him, how seen, how valued. And then she thinks about how devastating it will be when this ends, when the project finishes and they don't have built-in reasons to spend time together, when he realizes he doesn't actually need her friendship, that he was just being kind to the quiet girl in the corner, when he meets someone better, someone funnier, prettier, more interesting, more worthy of his attention. The thought is so painful it's physical. Zara curls onto her side, hugging her pillow, and makes a decision. She needs to protect herself. She needs to start pulling back before she gets hurt, before she loses something she never really had. But here's the thing about building walls. Sometimes they keep out the exact thing you need most. The next day, Zara cancels their usual coffee meetup, claiming she has a deadline. It's not entirely a lie, she does have work to finish, but it's not the real reason. The real reason is that she needs distance, needs to remember how to be alone again before being with Kieran becomes something she can't live without. Kieran texts, "No problem. Let me know if you need help with the deadline." The kindness in that message almost breaks her resolve. Almost. She starts creating space between them. Not dramatically. She's not brave enough for confrontation, but gradually, carefully. She eats lunch at her desk instead of the cafeteria. She responds to his texts with shorter messages, longer gaps. She volunteers for tasks that don't require their collaboration. She's disappearing again, but this time it's a choice, a preemptive strike against inevitable heartbreak. And Kieran notices. Of course he notices. Because unlike everyone else in Zara's life, Kieran actually pays attention. He's confused, hurt even, though he doesn't have the emotional vocabulary to name it immediately. Did he do something wrong? Did he misread their friendship? He replays their recent interactions, searching for the moment things shifted, but he can't find it. One day they were fine, better than fine, they were connected, and the next, Zara was pulling away, and he doesn't understand why. This is the pattern that's haunted Kieran his entire life. People leave. They get tired of translating for him, explaining jokes, accommodating his needs. They get frustrated with his directness, or his silence, or his difficulty expressing emotions in ways they recognize. They leave, and he's alone again. And he's learned to expect it. But with Zara, he'd started to hope it might be different. She'd never seemed frustrated with him. She'd never made him feel broken or difficult. She'd just accepted him, and he'd started to believe that maybe, finally, he'd found someone who understood. Now she's pulling away, and Kieran is trying to give her space while simultaneously fighting the urge to ask what changed. Because asking requires vulnerability, and vulnerability has always led to rejection, and Kieran isn't sure he can handle being rejected by Zara. Not her. Not when she's become the best part of his day, the person he thinks about constantly, the reason he actually looks forward to going to work. Wait. The person he thinks about constantly. Kieran sits at his desk one evening after everyone else has gone home, staring at his code without seeing it, and realizes with startling clarity he's in love with Zara. Not just fond of her, not just comfortable with her, but actually completely in love. He loves her quietness, her brilliance, her thoughtfulness. He loves the way she explains complex concepts with patience, the way she doodles in the margins of her notebooks during long meetings, the way she smiles, really smiles, not the polite version, when something genuinely amuses her. He loves that she doesn't expect him to be someone he's not, that she values his honesty, that she makes him feel understood for the first time in his life. But if he's in love with her, and she's pulling away, what does that mean? Does she know? Did he somehow reveal his feelings and scare her off? Or worse, does she know and is trying to gently create distance because she doesn't feel the same way? The thought is paralyzing. Kieran has been rejected before, but this feels different. Higher stakes. More painful. Because Zara isn't just anyone. She's the first person who's ever made him feel like being himself is enough. He needs to talk to her. He needs to understand what changed. But every time he tries to approach her, she's busy or leaving or surrounded by coworkers, and the opportunities slip away. The project is nearing completion. 3 weeks left, maybe 4. And Kieran realizes with growing dread that when the project ends, so does their excuse to spend time together. If Zara is already pulling away now, what happens when the project wraps up? Will they just become colleagues who nod politely in hallways? Will he lose her completely before he ever really had her? Meanwhile, Zara is discovering that protecting yourself from pain doesn't mean you don't feel it. It just means you feel it alone. She misses Kieran. She misses their lunches, their conversations, the way he made her feel like she mattered. She misses texting him random thoughts throughout the day and getting responses that proved he actually cared about her random thoughts. She misses being seen, but she's convinced this is necessary. Better to miss him while she still has her dignity than to wait around hoping for something more and watching him eventually choose someone else. Better to be invisible again than to be visible and still not chosen. The project approaches its final phase. The team is working overtime to meet the deadline, and Zara finds herself in the office late one evening, running final tests on the data architecture. She's alone in the analytics section, or so she thinks, working late. She jumps, startled, and turns to find Kieran standing in her cubicle entrance, holding 2 cups of coffee. "I saw your light on," he says, offering her one of the cups. "Thought you might need this." Zara takes the coffee, and their fingers brush, and the contact sends electricity up her arm. She's been avoiding him for 2 weeks, and now here he is, and she doesn't know whether to be relieved or terrified. "Thanks," she manages. Kieran doesn't leave. Instead, he pulls over a chair from an empty cubicle and sits down. "Can we talk?" Her heart is pounding. "About the project? About why you've been avoiding me?" Direct, honest, so perfectly Kieran. And Zara has no defense against that kind of straightforward vulnerability. "I haven't been," she starts, but Kieran's expression stops her. He's not angry. He's hurt. And somehow, that's worse. "Did I do something wrong?" he asks, and his voice is quiet, almost tentative. "Because if I did, I need you to tell me. I don't always pick up on social cues, and I can't fix something if I don't know what I did." "You didn't do anything wrong," Zara says quickly, because the idea of Kieran blaming himself is unbearable. "Then why?" He leans forward, elbows on his knees, looking at her with an intensity that makes her want to squirm. "Why are you pulling away? I thought we were friends. I thought—" He stops, seems to reconsider his words. "I thought things were good." "They were," Zara whispers. "They are. That's the problem." Kieran's brow furrows. "I don't understand." And here it is. The moment Zara has been dreading. She can deflect, make an excuse, keep her walls up. Or she can be honest, risk everything, let him see the messy truth of her feelings and her fears. She takes a shaky breath. "I was protecting myself." "From what?" "From this. From caring too much. From—" She stops, can't quite make herself say it. But Kieran doesn't let her off the hook. "From what, Zara?" "From losing you when the project ends and we don't have reasons to spend time together anymore. And you realize you don't actually need my friendship, and you move on, and I'm alone again." The words tumble out in a rush, and Zara feels tears threatening because she's said too much, revealed too much, and now he knows exactly how pathetic she is. There's a long silence. Kieran is staring at her, and Zara can't read his expression, and she's about to make an excuse and flee when he says, very quietly, "Is that really what you think? That I'm going to move on? People always do." Her voice breaks. "I'm easy to forget." "You're not easy to forget." Kieran says it with such certainty that Zara almost believes him. "Zara, you're the least forgettable person I've ever met." "That's not true. I've spent my entire life being invisible." "Not to me," he interrupts, leaning closer. "You've never been invisible to me. Not for 1 second. Zara's breath catches. "Kieran, do you want to know what I think about when I wake up in the morning? I think about whether you'll be in the cafeteria for coffee. I think about what you'll be wearing, what mood you'll be in, whether you'll share one of your random observations that somehow make my entire day better. I think about you constantly, Zara, and when you started pulling away, it felt like losing something essential, like losing air." The confession hangs in the air between them, and Zara doesn't know what to do with it. Is he saying what she thinks he's saying? Or is she reading into it, projecting her own desperate hopes onto his words? "I don't understand," she whispers. Kieran runs a hand through his hair, frustrated with himself. "I'm not good at this, at expressing feelings. But I need you to understand that you're not just my friend, Zara. You're—" He pauses, searching for words. "You're the person I want to tell everything to. You're the person who makes me feel like I don't have to hide. You're the person who sees me, really sees me, and doesn't try to change what you see. You see me too," Zara says, and tears are sliding down her cheeks now. "You're the only person who's ever really seen me. Then why are you pulling away?" "Because I'm falling in love with you." The words escape before she can stop them, and Zara freezes, horrified. She just confessed. She just ruined everything. She starts to stand, to run, to disappear again, but Kieran's hand catches her wrist. "Wait," he says. "Wait, say that again. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have." "Zara, say it again." She forces herself to meet his eyes, and what she sees there makes her heart stop. Hope, wonder, relief. "I'm falling in love with you," she repeats, barely audible. "And I know that's probably not what you want to hear, and I know I'm not the kind of person someone like you would choose, but I can't help it. You made me feel like I matter, and now I can't imagine not having you in my life, and it's terrifying because I know eventually—" Kieran kisses her. It's gentle and tentative and completely overwhelming. His hand cups her face, his thumb brushing away her tears, and Zara's entire world narrows to this moment, this kiss, this impossible thing that's happening. When he pulls back, his forehead rests against hers, and he's smiling, actually smiling in a way she's never seen before, open and unguarded and beautiful. "I'm falling in love with you too," he whispers. "I have been for weeks. Maybe from that first conversation in the break room. I just didn't know if you felt the same, and I was terrified of ruining our friendship, and I'm so bad at reading signals that I convinced myself you couldn't possibly—" Zara kisses him this time, cutting off his rambling with her lips against his, and it's less tentative now, more certain. This is real. This is happening. The invisible girl is being chosen by someone who actually sees her. The different boy is being loved by someone who doesn't need him to change. They break apart, both breathing hard, and Kieran laughs, a sound of pure relief and joy. "So we're both idiots," he says. Apparently Zara agrees, and she's laughing too, even as tears continue to fall, because this is happiness. This unfamiliar, overwhelming feeling flooding her chest is actual happiness. They stay in that quiet office long past midnight, talking about everything they were too afraid to say before. Kieran tells her about his fear of being too different, too difficult, too much work. Zara tells him about her lifetime of invisibility, her conviction that she wasn't worthy of being chosen. They share their wounds and their fears and their hopes, and in the sharing, something shifts. They're not just falling in love, they're choosing each other with full knowledge of what that means. But here's the thing about new love, especially when it's built between two people who've been hurt before. It's fragile, beautiful but fragile. And the real world has a way of testing whether that fragility can survive. The project launches the following week. It's a massive success. The data visualization tool works flawlessly, impresses leadership, and gets rolled out company-wide. The team celebrates with drinks at a bar downtown, and for the first time, Zara actually wants to attend a company event. Because Kieran will be there, and they're together now, and she's not alone anymore. But as she stands in that crowded bar, watching her co-workers laugh and drink and celebrate, old anxieties creep back in. She and Kieran haven't told anyone about their relationship yet. It's too new, too precious to expose to office gossip. So Zara stands slightly apart from the group, and Kieran is across the room talking to other developers. And to anyone watching, it looks exactly like it did before. Zara, alone, invisible. She tells herself it's fine, that she's being ridiculous, that Kieran choosing her in private is what matters, not whether other people know. But then she overhears a conversation, two women from marketing, standing near her but not acknowledging her presence. "Did you see Kieran brought donuts again this morning? He's so thoughtful." "I know, right? I swear he's the perfect guy. Why is someone like that still single? Maybe he's not. Maybe he's just private about it." "True, though I can't imagine who he'd date. He's so smart and sweet. He could have anyone." They move away, still talking, and Zara stands frozen. He could have anyone. The words echo in her head. He could have anyone, and he chose you. But for how long? How long before he realizes he could do better? How long before your invisibility spreads to him, makes him forgettable too? How long before he understands that being with you means being pulled down into your shadows? Zara suddenly can't breathe. The bar is too loud, too crowded, too much. She needs to leave. She gathers her jacket, ready to slip out without saying goodbye. Because that's what invisible people do, right? They disappear without anyone noticing. But then Kieran is beside her, his hand gentle on her elbow. "You okay?" he asks, and his eyes are concerned, searching her face. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just not really my scene." Kieran's expression softens. "Mine either." "Want to get out of here?" And Zara realizes he noticed. Even in a crowded room full of people vying for his attention, he noticed her discomfort. He chose to check on her. He's choosing her right now, in this moment, offering to leave his own celebration because he can see she needs to. "You don't have to leave," Zara says. "This is your success too." "Our success," Kieran corrects. "And I'd rather celebrate with you, somewhere quiet, than with them, somewhere loud." It's such a simple statement, but it cracks something open in Zara's chest. He'd rather be with her, not despite her quietness, but because of it. Because she's what he wants. They leave the bar together and walk to a nearby park. It's late spring, the air warm and sweet, the city lights reflecting off a small pond. They find a bench away from the main path, and Kieran pulls her close, his arm around her shoulders. "I need to tell you something," he says after a moment of comfortable silence. Zara tenses. Here it comes, the realization, the second thoughts, the gentle letdown. But Kieran continues, "I used to think I was broken, that there was something fundamentally wrong with me, because I couldn't connect with people the way everyone else seemed to." Zara's heart aches with recognition. She knows that feeling intimately, lives with it daily. "But then I met you," Kieran says, turning to look at her, "and for the first time in my life, I don't feel broken. I feel understood. I feel seen. I feel like being exactly who I am is not just acceptable but valued." Tears blur Zara's vision. "I feel the same way. I've spent my whole life being invisible, convinced there was something wrong with me, something missing that made me unworthy of attention. And then you saw me. You actually saw me." Kieran stops walking and turns to face her fully, taking both her hands in his. "Zara, I don't just see you. You're the first thing I think about when I wake up, and the last thing I think about before I sleep. You're the best part of every day. You're not invisible to me. You're everything." The word everything lands like a revelation. Zara has spent 24 years being nothing to everyone, and now she's everything to someone. To this brilliant, kind, wonderful someone who's looking at her like she hung the stars. "No one's ever said anything like that to me before," she whispers. "Then everyone else is blind," Kieran says fiercely. "Because you're extraordinary, Zara. You're brilliant and thoughtful and kind. You see things other people miss. You make the world quieter and better just by being in it. And He pauses, takes a breath. "I know I'm not great at expressing feelings or doing romantic gestures, but I need you to know you matter. To me, you matter more than anyone ever has." Zara is crying now, years of loneliness and pain and worthlessness pouring out, but it's different this time. These aren't tears of grief. They're tears of relief, of finally being chosen, of mattering. She kisses him, pouring every word she doesn't know how to say into the contact. "Thank you. I see you too. I choose you back. You're everything to me too." When they finally break apart, both breathless, Kieran asks, "What are you thinking?" Zara smiles, a real smile, the kind that transforms her face. "I'm thinking that maybe I was never invisible. Maybe everyone else was just not paying attention, and you're the first person who actually looked. Then I'm the luckiest person alive," Kieran says, "because I get to be the one who sees you." They stay in that park until the early hours of morning, talking and kissing and planning a future that neither of them thought they'd ever have. And as the sun starts to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Zara realizes something profound. She's not afraid anymore. Not of being hurt, not of hoping, not of letting herself be seen. Because even if everything else falls apart, she'll always have this moment. This certainty that she mattered to someone, that she was chosen, that she was loved. But the question remains, can two people who've spent their lives being overlooked and misunderstood actually build something lasting? Or will the wounds they carry prove too deep to heal? Can love really change everything, Or will reality eventually intrude on their fragile, perfect beginning? Can two people who've spent their entire lives being invisible actually build something visible together? Can love born in the margins survive in the center? Zara and Kieran are about to find out. The weeks following their confession in the park unfold like a dream Zara keeps expecting to wake up from. She and Kieran are together now, actually officially together, and it's everything she never let herself hope for. They haven't announced it at work yet, preferring to keep this precious thing private for a little longer. But in every other way, they're building something real. Morning coffee before work becomes their ritual. Evening walks through the city replace lonely nights in empty apartments. Weekend hikes, where Kieran can decompress from the social demands of the week, and Zara can simply exist without performing, becomes sacred time. They text constantly. Random thoughts, terrible jokes, observations about their days. And for the first time in her life, Zara's phone buzzes with messages that make her smile instead of dread. But here's what's fascinating about being chosen after a lifetime of invisibility. It doesn't just change how you see yourself, it changes how everyone else sees you too. At work, something shifts. Zara arrives one morning to find her manager waiting at her desk with news. She's being promoted to senior data analyst. It's a role she didn't even apply for, but her work on the visualization project, the project where Kieran made sure her contributions were visible, caught the attention of senior leadership. They want to expand her responsibilities, give her a team to lead, put her in charge of the company's entire data infrastructure strategy. Zara stands there, stunned, because this doesn't happen to invisible people. Invisible people don't get promoted. They don't get noticed. They don't get opportunities, except she's not invisible anymore. Or maybe she never was, and everyone else was just not paying attention until someone forced them to look. She accepts the promotion, and that evening, when she tells Kieran, he sweeps her into his arms and spins her around his apartment living room, laughing with pure joy. "I'm so proud of you," he says, and the pride in his voice is genuine, untainted by jealousy or competition. He's genuinely happy for her success, celebrating her accomplishments as if they're his own. And Zara realizes this is what partnership looks like, two people lifting each other up instead of competing for limited space in the spotlight. But success at work is just one dimension of change. Kieran introduces her to his small circle of friends, other developers, a few people from his gaming group, and to Zara's shock, they welcome her. They ask her questions, remember her answers, include her in conversations. She makes her first real friend outside of Kieran, a woman named Maya, who works in UX design and shares Zara's love of fantasy novels. They start having lunch together when Kieran is in meetings, texting about book recommendations, making plans to visit a new bookstore downtown. Zara has a friend, multiple friends actually, a social life, people who choose her company. It's disorienting and wonderful in equal measure. Even more disorienting is what happens when Zara finally gathers the courage to wear something other than beige. She shows up to work one day in a deep blue blouse, nothing flashy, nothing dramatic, just color. And Kieran's face lights up when he sees her. "You look beautiful," he says, and the compliment doesn't feel performative or obligatory. It feels true. She starts experimenting with other colors, emerald green, burgundy, even a soft pink that she'd always dismissed as too attention-seeking. And the world doesn't end. Lightning doesn't strike. She doesn't get mocked or judged. She just exists in color instead of grayscale, and it's fine. Better than fine. It's liberating. Meetings become less terrifying. Zara starts speaking up, sharing ideas, contributing to discussions, not because she's suddenly extroverted or loud, but because Kieran's belief in her has awakened her own belief in herself. And when someone talks over her, which still happens because some habits die hard, Kieran doesn't let it slide. "Hold on," he'll say, gentle but firm. Zara wasn't finished. It's not controlling or possessive. It's partnership. It's someone having her back, and gradually, Zara learns to do it for herself. To say, "I'd like to finish my thought," without apologizing, without shrinking, without disappearing. But while Zara is learning to take up space, Kieran is experiencing his own transformation. For the first time in his life, he's not hiding. He tells Zara about his autism diagnosis, about his struggles with social cues and sensory overload, and the exhaustion of masking. And Zara doesn't flinch, doesn't try to fix him, doesn't suggest he just try harder to be normal. She just listens, asks questions, learns his patterns. When they're at social events and he gets overwhelmed, she creates exit strategies without him having to ask. When he goes nonverbal after a particularly draining day, she sits with him in comfortable silence. No pressure to perform conversation. When he needs alone time to recharge, she doesn't take it personally. She just texts him reassurance and gives him space. Kieran introduces Zara to his family, his mother, his younger sister, and they adore her. His mother hugs her and whispers, "Thank you for seeing him," and Zara's eyes fill with tears because she understands exactly what that means. His sister pulls her aside and says, "I've never seen him this happy, this relaxed. You're good for him." And Zara realizes that love isn't just about being chosen. It's about choosing back. It's about seeing someone's full self, struggles and quirks and difficult parts included, and saying, "Yes, all of it. I choose all of it." 6 months into their relationship, Zara faces a test she's been dreading, family dinner with her own family. She hasn't told them about Kieran yet, hasn't mentioned the promotion, hasn't shared any of the transformative changes in her life because historically, her family doesn't notice. But her mother calls with a rare invitation. Sunday dinner. All the siblings will be there, please come. And Zara decides to bring Kieran. She needs to see if what they have can survive her family's particular brand of benign neglect. She needs to know if Kieran will still see her when her family doesn't. They arrive at her childhood home on a Sunday afternoon. And immediately, it's exactly as Zara feared. Her mother opens the door, says, "Oh, Zara, good, you're here," without really looking at her, then turns to Kieran with sudden interest. "And who's this?" Zara introduces him as her boyfriend, and her mother's eyebrows raise, surprised that Zara has a boyfriend, maybe disbelief. But she ushers them inside without further comment. The house is loud, chaotic, exactly as Zara remembers. Her older brother is talking about his latest marathon. Her older sister is showing off photos from her recent promotion to partner at her law firm. The younger siblings are bickering about something Zara doesn't catch. No one asks how she is. No one acknowledges her presence beyond a cursory, "Hey." Dinner is more of the same. Zara sits between Kieran and her younger sister, and conversation flows around her like water around a stone. She's present, but unseen, exactly as it's always been. Her father asks Kieran what he does for work, and suddenly everyone's interested, asking follow-up questions, engaging. But no one asks Zara about her promotion. No one asks how they met. No one seems to register that Zara, quiet, forgettable Zara, actually has something happening in her life. Zara feels herself shrinking, the old invisibility settling over her like a familiar coat. This was a mistake. She shouldn't have come. She shouldn't have subjected Kieran to this. But then Kieran's hand finds hers under the table, squeezes gently, and when she glances at him, his expression is calm, present, focused on her. Not on her family's conversation, not on the chaos around them, but on her. During a lull in conversation, Kieran does something Zara never expected. He speaks up. "Zara got promoted recently," he says, his voice clear and matter-of-fact. To senior data analyst, she's leading her own team now. The table goes quiet. Her mother blinks. "Oh, that's wonderful, dear." "It is wonderful," Kieran continues, and there's no aggression in his tone, just certainty. She designed a data infrastructure that's now being used company-wide. She's brilliant at what she does. He turns to Zara, and his smile is soft, proud. "You should tell them about the recognition you got from the CEO." Zara's throat is tight. She hadn't told Kieran about the CEO's email praising her work because she'd almost dismissed it as luck, as being in the right place at the right time. But Kieran noticed. Of course he noticed. He sees everything about her. She tells her family about the project, about the promotion, about the new responsibilities, and for maybe the first time in her life, her family actually listens. Her sister asks questions. Her brother seems impressed. Her mother looks at her like she's seeing Zara, actually seeing her. For the first time in years. After dinner, as they're leaving, Kieran pulls her close on the front porch and whispers, "You okay?" Zara nods. Because she is. Her family still doesn't really see her, probably never will, not the way Kieran does. But she's realized something important. She doesn't need them to. Their invisibility doesn't define her worth anymore. Kieran's visibility, his choice, his love, his unwavering attention, has taught her that being overlooked by some people doesn't mean you're forgettable. It just means those people aren't paying attention, and that's their loss, not hers. The months continue to unfold. Zara and Kieran fall deeper in love in the quietest, most sustainable way. There are no grand gestures or dramatic declarations, just two people choosing each other every single day. Morning coffees where they sit in comfortable silence, reading articles on their phones and occasionally sharing interesting bits. Evening cooking sessions where Kieran follows recipes with precise measurements and Zara improvises, and somehow their different approaches create something delicious. Weekend mornings where they stay in bed too long, tangled together, talking about everything and nothing. Late-night conversations where they share fears and dreams, and the small vulnerabilities that make intimacy real. Zara learns that Kieran shows love through actions more than words. He refills her water bottle before bed, makes sure her phone is charged, remembers her dentist appointments and texts her good luck. Kieran learns that Zara needs verbal reassurance sometimes, needs to hear that she's valued, that she matters, that she's chosen. They learn each other's languages and become fluent in ways that matter. At work, their relationship is no longer a secret. They didn't make an announcement, but people figured it out. The way they arrive together, the way Kieran's entire face softens when Zara walks into a room, the way Zara laughs more now, speaks up more, takes up space. Some coworkers gossip, but most are just happy for them. Maya tells Zara she's never seen two people more perfectly suited for each other. And maybe that's true. Maybe two people who spent their lives being overlooked were always meant to find each other, to create visibility together that neither could achieve alone. One evening, almost a year after that first conversation in the break room, Zara and Kieran are back in the company cafeteria. It's late, most people have gone home, but they're working on a new project together. Zara is explaining a complex data structure, and Kieran is listening with that complete attention that still makes her heart flutter. And then Zara notices something, a new employee, a young guy who looks lost and overwhelmed, sitting alone at a table in the corner, eating dinner by himself. He's staring at his phone, and his body language screams isolation, invisibility, loneliness. Zara recognizes him because she was him. Is him, in some ways, still. She catches Kieran's eye and nods toward the new employee. Kieran follows her gaze and understanding passes between them, that silent communication that comes from really knowing someone. "Mind if we invite him over?" Zara asks, and Kieran's smile is soft, proud. "I think that's a perfect idea." Zara stands, walks over to the young man's table. "Hey," she says gently. "I'm Zara. That's Kieran over there. We're working on a project and could use a fresh perspective. Want to join us?" The young man looks up, surprise clear on his face. "Me? Yeah, you. What department are you in?" "Analytics. I just started last week." Zara smiles. "Then you're exactly who we need. Come on." She watches him gather his things, watches the cautious hope in his expression, and she thinks about the girl she was a year ago, the invisible girl who thought she'd always be alone, the girl who'd given up on mattering to anyone. That girl is still part of her. But she's not defined by invisibility anymore. She's defined by being seen, by being chosen, by having the courage to see and choose others in return. As the three of them sit down together, Kieran reaches over and squeezes Zara's hand under the table, a gesture that says, "I see you. I choose you. Every single day, I choose you." And Zara squeezes back, "I see you too. I choose you too. Always." Because that's the thing about being invisible your whole life and then finally being seen. You learn that visibility is a gift, and gifts are meant to be shared. You learn that love isn't about grand gestures or dramatic transformations. It's about two people, maybe two quiet, overlooked, misunderstood people, deciding that they matter to each other. And that mattering is enough. More than enough. It's everything. Zara was invisible for 24 years, but she was never the problem. The world was just not paying attention. And then one person did. One person saw her, chose her, loved her exactly as she was. And that changed everything. So here's my question for you. Who in your life deserves to be seen? Who have you been overlooking? Who's sitting in the corner, taking notes, waiting for someone to notice they exist? Because maybe, just maybe, that person is waiting for someone exactly like you to ask them what they think, to listen when they speak, to choose them when everyone else passes by. Don't just watch this story and move on. Think about the invisible people in your life. See them, choose them, be someone's Kieran, be someone's Zara. Because being seen changes lives, and you have the power to change someone's life today. Now, tell me in the comments, have you ever felt invisible? Or have you been the person who saw someone else? Share your story. Let's create a community where everyone feels seen, where everyone matters, where no one has to spend their life being invisible. Hit that like button if this story moved you. Subscribe if you believe everyone deserves to be chosen. And share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because stories like this, they're reminders that you're not alone, that being different isn't being broken, and that somewhere out there, someone is looking for exactly who you are. Don't give up. Your Kieran or your Zara might be closer than you think.